All right, so on the first section, I'm asking for three things. The domain, the holes, which is point discontinuity, and a vertical asymptote. So what's the only one I find before I reduce? The domain. So when you get to this tomorrow, you want to do this column first. Just do it right down the line, that column first, because you're doing that before I reduce. So when I ask for the domain, what's the only thing that affects the domain? Denominator, right? Because that's where I get my vertical asymptote. So the domain is the denominator. Domain, denominator. So I'm going to get an x such that x cannot equal what? -2. The domain here, x such that x cannot equal -5. What can I not equal here? 0 and here? So look, everybody just got points, right? It all came from the denominator, and you do it before you reduce it. Now, for these, you have to reduce. So to find the point discontinuity, this cancels, so my x is -2. And this is my reduced function. So to find the whole, what do I do with my -2? F of -2. So -2 minus 3 is -5. So my point discontinuity is -2, -5. And now it's asking for the vertical asymptote. So this is the only one we do before it's reduced. So I reduced. Is there anything in the denominator? So this is a none. So for this next column, for this, does anything cancel out? So this is none. I want the vertical asymptote. So is something left in the denominator? Yes. So this is x equals -5. So for this one, do I just fill things out? What do I have to do first? You have to factor. So I get x plus 4 and x minus 4. So does something cancel? Yes. So this cancels, so I know I get point discontinuity at 4. So my reduced function now is x plus 4 over x. So to find the y value, if I put 4 in here, I get 4 plus 4, which is 8, divided by 4 is 2. And now, do I have a vertical asymptote now? Because I have an x in the denominator, so I get 0. Very good. So, will anything cancel here? So this is none. And what's my vertical asymptote? Okay, thumbs up. We can do this. Look at all the points you just got. This is awesome. So next I want the horizontal asymptote and the slant asymptotes. All right, so horizontal asymptotes. If it's top heavy, it's none. Bottom heavy is 0. And if it's tied, the ratio. If it's 1 greater, I get a slant asymptote. Okay? Now, so if I look at this one, what is this one? Tied. So I get y equals 3/4. And if you don't put the x equals and the y equals, I'm going to count them wrong. Okay? So the horizontal asymptote is y, the vertical is x. So I get none. And please write none so I know that you know there is none. Okay, what about the next one? It's top heavy by 1. So this one we like. We don't have, all we have to do is divide by the x. So if I divide by the x, 3x squared divided by x is what? Three x squared divided by x gives me 3x. 2x divided by x gives me 2, and we don't care about the remainder. Oh, I put it in the wrong. Yep, sorry. Sorry, guys. 1 over. And there's none here. So number 7. I have 2 on top, 3 on bottom. That makes it, bless you, bottom heavy, which is 0. And this is none. So I have x and x, which makes this tied. So I want the coefficients. So I get y equals 4 and none. And the last one, it's top heavy by 1, which means I have to do, I'm going to have a slant asymptote. And since it's plus 5, instead of long division, I can use synthetic. So I'm going to have 4, -1, and 2.
Teachers, please pardon this interruption. If you
So my slant asymptote, I get 4x minus 21. Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs down for that. So look at all the points we've got now. So next, I want the roots and the y-intercepts. Roots and y-intercepts. Where did the roots come from? So this is the top, and the y-intercept is f of 0. And this comes after you reduce. You have to reduce first. So that means I have to factor before I do this. Okay? So x squared minus 4x minus 5 is going to be x minus 5, x plus 1. So this cancels. And I don't care because I'm not looking for a point discontinuity here. I just want the reduced function. So my reduced function is going to be x plus 1 over x minus 2. So now I can get my roots, and that comes from the top. And the top, my roots would be x equals -1. So my f is 0 is going to be 0 plus 1 over 0 minus 2. So I get 0 and -1/2. Yes or no? I just took the 0 and put it in the reduced function where there's an x. Okay. So when I factor on top, I get x minus 3, x plus 2. So what cancels? Oh, nothing cancels. Don't do that on the test tomorrow. I'll count yours wrong. So if nothing cancels, what are my roots? Correct. And then I have to find f of 0. And that's going to equal -3 times 2 over +3. So I'm going to get 0 and -2. So on the last one, if I factor the bottom, It doesn't factor. Okay, so we're going to skip this one. All right. So on your test tomorrow, they're all going to factor. Okay. Okay, so what part are we to now? Your favorite part. Everybody smile while we do this because we're having fun. Because you can all do it now. Okay, I see some of you not playing. Stop shaking your head no at me. We are having fun. All right, so the first one, I have the multiplied out form, and I have the factored form for you. So the second one, if you look, the second one, though, I only give you the multiplied out. I don't give you the factored. So you're going to have to factor the second one when we do it, okay? So the first one is all factored for us. So does anything cancel? No holes. Where do the roots come from? The top, and we want to get that on the factored form. So I'm going to have my x are going to equal -5 and 2. Let's go ahead and put those little handy-dandy roots right on your graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, and 2. What's my vertical asymptote going to equal? Because that comes from the bottom. So I get x equals 1. So let's put a handy-dandy, cute little asymptote. Do I have any tangency or togetherness? No. So what does that mean on my number line? They're all going to alternate, right? Nothing is going to have to be the same, so they're alternating. So now I'm to my end behavior. So that's where I'm looking at the degree. And so my degree, I have 2 and 1. So do I have a slant asymptote or do I have a horizontal? I have a slant. So I have no horizontal asymptote. And this time, how am I going to find the slant asymptote? So I have one synthetic and one long. What do you think? I think synthetic is easier. That's what I got to. So when I did my synthetic division, I get 1, 3, and -10. And I tested 1. So I get y equals x plus 4, because we don't care about the remainder. So remember, this is the x, and then this is your constant. So I have x plus 4. So if I'm going to put that slant asymptote, where do I start? Plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the 4. And then you can use your ID, because that makes a straight line. I don't have an ID. Mine is not as straight. So next, I want to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to use f as 0. And that's going to equal 5 times -2 divided by -1, which is going to be 10. So my y-intercept is 0, 10, which means right here. So what's the only thing left to check now? The number line. And what goes on the number line? -5, 1, and 2. So the R and the A. So I'm going to put -5, 1, and 2. So now what do? I have to check. So if I check -6, if I put -6 in here, I get a negative. If I put -6 in here, I have another negative. And if I put -6 in here, I have a negative on bottom. So negative times negative gives me positive. Positive divided by negative gives me negative. So I'm going to start at negative, positive, negative, positive. So what happens from -5 down? So it's going to hug the asymptote, right? So I'm going to hug. Hugging the asymptote. There I go. Then what happens from -5 to 1? And 1, it's all positive, right? So I'm going to hug the asymptote, and I have to hit the y-intercept. So what happens from 1 to 2? And 1 to 2 is right here. It's negative, so I'm going to hug the asymptote. And then what happens? It goes positive, so it's going to hug this asymptote. How many of you can do one like this? All right, let's try the next one. Okay, if you can't, does anybody have any questions before I go on? Because ask them now, because everybody else has the same questions you have. Yes?
When you check if one of the points cross the asymptote, do you use the factored out form?
Okay.
Equals 1/1.
No. Okay, so his question is if we have to check if it crosses an asymptote. And we're going to check the horizontal asymptotes, okay? So if we do that, we're going to use the multiply together one. Okay? Good question. Nobody else has any questions? So if a horizontal asymptote, if it's not at 0, you have to check and see if it'll cross that. Okay? Why do we not have to check the zeros? Because once it crosses zeros, it changes signs, right? And we have the sign chart to tell us whether it's going to stay positive or negative. So we don't have to check the zeros. Okay? Good questions. Anything else? So, okay. So for instance, if I had a horizontal asymptote of 1 here, I would have to check. And so I would take this right here, and I would set it equal to 1/1, and I would cross multiply. And if everything crosses out, it's a no. But if you're left with an X, then it crosses. Okay? Yes. So if the top term is squared, then it's a tangency. If the bottom term is squared, it's a together. Okay? All right. So I'm going to let you try the last. Okay, so I'm ready to graph. Did anybody attempt to graph? You did? Okay. So if I start positive all the way up to -2. So this is positive. What do I have to check and see? If it crosses. Did it cross? Yes or no? Was it a yes? What? Okay, so did you use this one or this one? Use the first one? Okay, so if we use the first one, when I cross multiply, so the x squareds cancel out. But did the x's cancel out? No. So if I subtract, I get 3x over here, and I get -12. So that tells me at -4, it's supposed to cross the asymptote. Can it cross the asymptote at -4? Yes or no? It says yes, but what's the value at -4, friends? What is here? A hole. So is the -4 going to get included? No. So it can't cross at that point. So it's a point that it's not going to cross at. So that tells me that it's not crossing anywhere else. So this is all positive. So this is going to look like this. What happens between -2 and 1?
It starts going negative.
It's negative, so this part has to go down. Then it goes positive. And so is it going to cross the asymptote? Because we checked, and it says only at -4, but -4 is a hole, so we can't even cross at -4. So this is all going to stay positive, and it has to stay under the asymptote.